here. What were some of your biggest takeaways yesterday? Hit the chat box. I'd love to know some of your biggest takeaways, things that you heard, things that resonated with you, all that kind of good stuff. So if you hit the chat box and let me know, that'll be great before we get started. All right, I see Ruth, I see Georgette, I see Alistair, I see Michael, I see Rob. Hey guys, Roger, good to see you. Roger might be in Australia. He's got some dark lights behind him, so he might be somewhere where the sun is already set. We had a good turnout yesterday. We'll see what we have today. Unfortunately, sometimes people actually think, oh, okay, I'll just watch the recordings and not do the lives. When it's a different energy when you do lives. Angela Kay, good to see you. And then we've got Sujay, nice to see you. Emily, Donna, Carol. I already said hi to Derek, and I said hi to Dave earlier. So if you guys would please, what were your biggest takeaways? Okay, you were not here yesterday, but I have some questions and I am free to ask them now. Nope, we don't answer questions here. Ethan, this is training. We'll answer questions over the weekend. And if you watched the first training, that might already answer some of the questions that you have. We will get your question answered, but this is not the day or time to do it. That you need to stay in the work. You know, Alistair, that's really good because most people in life, I'm just telling you guys, most people in life won't do the work, whether it's this work or whatever. They just won't do the work. Kate, good one there, 432 Park. That's a powerful one, right? Going to a higher level of thinking, going to vertical thinking as opposed to horizontal thinking. Be the person I want to be. We're going to talk about more being on Monday, characteristics and ways of being. Carol from Carol Boston. That's a big one. My thoughts are an illusion. That's helped me pretty much more than anything in life is, and I'm no different than you guys, but I have tools and I've been in this field for 30 years. And I mean, I can have thinking blindside me as well. And when it does, the first place I go is, but this is, you can use whatever wording you want, but the first place that I go is, I'm making this shit up in my head. Stop. If I'm going to make this up, I'm going to make something else up. After I had the stroke in 2020, I remember, and I had heart failure 6 months prior. I was showering one morning and my body was feeling a little odd. And I was thinking, oh, okay. What creeped into my mind was, oh, okay. All right, there's something else going on, going wrong. And then I stopped and I said, whoa, stop. You're making this up in your mind. And then in the transformational coaching program, we don't talk about it here. I went into what interpretations am I making? Because everything in your life is an interpretation. And whatever your interpretation is what your stories become. And what your stories become is what you create. All right, we're going to do a little something here fun for a second, a little pop quiz. Before we do that, before we dig into the content, if you would please, I think you know after the first training, you're safe. There's no political messaging, there's no religion, any of that. Invite people that you know that would get benefit from this series. It will be up all through next week, and then we're going to pull it down. So invite people you know because I'm telling you, everyone you know is dealing with something in life that you may not be aware of that maybe I can give them some awareness about it, some learning about it, some observation about it so they can start changing. So invite people. Okay, we're going to do a little pop quiz here. Stay with me as we go through this. So as I mentioned yesterday, when we're done, I'm going to offer you guys the opportunity to work with me and my coaching team. Me literally for 13 weeks. I will get to know you, you will get to know me. I'm going to share something with you right now. Again, stay with me. We're just doing a quiz. The investment to work with me for 13 weeks is $10,000. As I said that, here's the pop quiz. What did you feel? What did you think? Did you think, oh my God, here we go again. Somebody's selling me something. Oh my God, $10,000? Are you kidding me? That's a lot of money. Are you thinking, not a problem. Where do I sign up? All I want you to notice, I did this for a reason. Notice, by the way, it's not $10,000. It's not even half of that. It's not even a third of that. We're going to talk about that later. What I want you to notice right now, where did your thinking go when I said that? That's a reflection of your context. Remember, I told you yesterday that, like a battery on your cell phone, your context and your identity are running in the background. So as I brought that up, you're analytically thinking about it, and your context, boom, pops up. And for most of you, it bites you. And then you wonder why. Why am I not getting what I want in life? Why am I not doing what I want to do in life? So notice this is really important, guys. And I picked money because money is something that many of you have a challenge with. So somebody said, my attention got lost. I've got to share with you right there, your attention got lost. Why? Because it bumped up against something in you subconsciously about money. And we all have that drunk, not the drunk, the drawer in the kitchen, where you've got everything in it, a tape measure, tape, pens, tape, everything, thumbtacks, everything in it. And I was going through mine last week, and to show you, I grew up a small town Texas farm boy, and in my junk drawer in the kitchen, no disrespect to money, I found this 6 ounces of gold. What's gold today? 2,300 an ounce? What is this? 6,000, 7,000 bucks or something? Do you think years ago I would have had that in my kitchen drawer? I couldn't even afford that years ago. Please listen. Look at what you did when I mentioned $10,000. I've got this in my kitchen drawer. If you think $10,000 is a lot of money, think about this. Listen very carefully. If you think $10,000 is a lot of money, it is a lot of money for you. But you know what? It's not a lot of money unless you think it's a lot of money. Your context, please pay attention to that. And anything that bumps up against you, that pisses you off, or puts you in fear, or puts you in shutdown, it might not put the person next to you in those emotional states. If you said 10,000 to me 20 years ago, I'd be like, are you kidding me? Are you nuts? What the hell's wrong? And now I'm like, okay, if it'll help me and I can grow and I can be sure that it's going to work, or I get some assurance, okay, I'll do it. But notice how the context changed. Notice your context. Okay, let's dig into today. Today, we're going to start talking about your brain, and we're going to start talking about your subconscious mind. We're going to start first with your brain. And we're going to walk through ways that your brain works, the way that it processes information. And in particular, we're going to start talking about your habits. So yesterday, you learned, well, module 1, you learned that your business and your life, meaning your external life, is a 100% reflection of you and your context. Just like this. This little test I told you was a quiz. Just like that little quiz, that little test we went through. Look at your response. That is your context, like the battery on the cell phone, working in the background. And that travels with you like something on your shoulder everywhere you go in life. And it filters into every decision you make, which is why you wonder why. Why can't I get ahead in life? Why can't I get more in life? Why can't I do? Why do I fall back into my old patterns? I've got the best of intentions, yet I'm doing the same thing over and over and over again. So, like I said, today we're going to start with your mind and your brain. And then on Monday, we're going to go through thoughts and characteristics, because your identity has characteristics. And you have to look at what characteristics must I be to create the outcomes that I want to create in life. If you're not that characteristic, you're not going to create the outcome. And then you get upset because you're like, why? I really want ABC. Why am I not creating it? Well, the answers are becoming apparent to you guys. All right, we're going to start with the brain. There was some research done at the Max Planck Institute in Leipzig, Germany back in, I believe, around 2008. The Max Planck Institute is one of the foremost research universities in the or institutes in the world. Back then, they had 43 Nobel Prize winning contributors on or contributing to research at the Max Planck Institute. What they did, and by the way, I'm going to slow down today. We're probably going to go an hour and a half like yesterday, an hour and 45 minutes. It's Friday. I'm going to take it easy. And by the way, I wanted to show you guys, this was from the first round of TCP. A student gave me this MTF like a mofo. Anyone remember what MTF is? Master Thought Formula. Okay. Max Planck Institute. What they did is they put people in fMRI machines, functional magnetic resonance imaging machines, and they watched the blood flow in the brain. Then what they did is they said, hey, make a decision between A and B. You've only got two choices. Now, here's the choice, make the choice. And they watched the blood flow in the brain as a person was making a choice. What they discovered was beyond mind-blowing. They discovered that even while the person thought they were thinking about their decision, even though the person was consciously thinking, well, should I pick A? Should I pick B? Their brain already made the decision for them 7 seconds prior to them even consciously saying they made a decision. That doesn't mean you don't have free will, because what they discovered is you can change at the last nanoseconds, you can change your thinking about the decisions you're going to make. But what they discovered, bottom of the screen, many processes in the brain occur automatically and without involvement of our consciousness. Basically, in a nutshell, what that means, even though you think you're thinking your way through life, even though you think you thought you would be here today, your brain and your neural conditioning made those decisions for you, even while you thought you were making the decision. So what do we have to do? We've got to retrain your brain, which we're going to start doing today. You're going to start learning today how to retrain your brain. Because if you don't retrain your brain, it's going to default to all the neural pathways in your brain. Dr. Alex Peugeot, University of Rochester, said, most of the decisions you make aren't based on conscious reasoning. Think about that. Most of the decisions you make aren't based on conscious reasoning. And many people will say, well, no, especially salespeople, they're made on emotions. Well, yes, but everything comes from the neural patterns in the brain. The more you think something and you think it over and over, which is partly what today's about, you create like little ditches, little rows, neural pathways in the brain. When you create the neural pathways in the brain, those are what we call habits. That's why no one says, oh, okay, I think I'm about to get into a habit in just a moment. I'm going to brush my teeth. You don't even think about it. It happens automatically. So let's look at your habits. They come from the oldest part of the brain called the reptilian part of the brain. And that comes from Paul MacLean's triune brain theory. But this is pretty much scientifically validated and has been over the years. What this basically means is there are three primary parts to the brain. The reptilian part of the brain, the oldest part of the brain, the mammalian part of the brain, the middle brain, the limbic system, the emotional brain, and the neocortex, which is the thinking part of the brain, the analytical part of the brain, the executive part of the brain, the part of your brain right now listening to everything I'm saying. Yet your reptilian brain is scanning your environment all the time for danger. The reptilian part of the brain is responsible for actually your habits, keeping you alive, and your autonomic nervous system. So right now, even though you're listening to me and the part of your brain processing it predominantly is the neocortex, the thinking part of the brain, if I walked up to you and you didn't like snakes and I showed you a snake and put it right up next to you, you're going to take off running. That's the reptilian brain taking over fight or flight response. So your reptilian brain, like the battery, is always running in the background. So what happens is the brain creates habits. The reason the brain creates habits is to conserve energy. Now, what I mean by conserving energy, could you imagine if every time you wanted to ride a bike, you had to learn how to ride a bike? You know how to ride a bike, and once you learn, you might not do it for 10 years. You do it again, your brain knows how to do it because it's already learned. Okay, I'm going to demonstrate something here for you guys. Your brain operates on autopilot. Now, to prove that, look at the slide in front of you. So I think, for example, Derek Watson is in some kind of van or car right now. He might be one of those nomads who travels and spends a lot of time in his van. So so I know he knows how to drive. But here's the thing is notice when you're driving, and by the way, I hope you can't hear that. I just got dog bombed, so hopefully you can't hear the dog barking in the front of the house because FedEx probably came by. Anyway, so notice when you're driving, Derek and everyone else, you're driving along and we all know stoplights, red, green, yellow, all around the world. You're driving along and it's green and you see it turn yellow. What you do not do is say, oh my gosh, it changed. Yellow. What does yellow mean? I don't know what yellow means. Maybe yellow means speed up. Maybe yellow means do a U-turn. Maybe yellow means to reverse. What does yellow mean? Notice this. Derek's going to be sitting there talking to his mom, hopefully with the headset on, talking to somebody on his phone, paying attention to all the things around him, talking to his mom at the same time we're talking to someone else. And notice what he does. He automatically speeds up and runs through the yellow light. Or what's he do? He stops. Notice, think back to what I just said. Most of what happens occurs without any analytical involvement in life. And that means every single thing that we do, everything, 99% of what you do all day long is a habit. And if you're not getting what you want in life, plain and simple, you're just not in the habit of doing it. Think back to day number one, part number one, where I said you don't get what you want in life, you get your habits. This is why it's vital to change your habits and make them consistent with what it is that you want to create in life. Let's take this to your everyday life. You work on autopilot, and it's all subconscious and brain-based. You ever notice that pretty much no matter what you do, for the most part, you get up at the same time every single morning. And even on Saturday, you're like, oh, it's Saturday. I'm going to sleep in today. Oh, your brain wakes you up at 7 a.m. It happens because your brain is conditioned, operative word, conditioned to do this. But let's look at your day. You get up in the morning. Hopefully you do these things to whatever degree and whatever order you do. Maybe you brush your teeth. Maybe you make coffee. Maybe you go to the bathroom. Maybe you shower. Notice this. You don't get up any morning and say, huh. Now, if you've been out drinking the night before, you can get up and say, what did I do last night? For many of you that were in college, you probably remember those days. But notice what you do. You wake up in the morning and you have the same sequence of behavior. Meaning, if you go to the bathroom first, you go to the bathroom, then you might walk over and turn on the shower, then you might walk around and pick up your toothbrush and brush your teeth, whatever it is for you. But notice you have the same sequence. Your brain creates neural pathways and you sequence your behavior. This is why you're like, damn it, why do I keep doing the same thing over and over and over again, but I don't want to do it. I want to do something else. Your analytical prefrontal cortex thinks, no, don't do that anymore. It's not good for you. Any of you dealing with an overconsumption of alcohol? I mean, let's say you're drinking every day, 2 or 3 glasses of wine, whatever it is for you. Notice what you do, and it can be anything in life. Chocolate, it can be anything. Notice what you do. I'm not going to do that tonight. I'm not going to have any wine tonight. I'm just not going to do it. I'm going to stop the behavior. prefrontal cortex thinking, analytical thought. Yet that night, you're drinking wine again. Why? Because your brain will make you do the habit. Drinking, that's going to piss a lot of people off, is not an addiction. Drinking is a habit, excessive drinking. We have to learn to manage the brain. And AA, it's going to piss even more people off, and I know because I've done it. AA actually keeps people as alcoholics for a lifetime. The reason why is when you go to AA, I've never been, but you go to AA and they say, "Hi, my name is Bob. I'm an alcoholic." What are you doing in that moment? Think about that, guys. What are you doing over and over and over and over and over again, creating neural pathways in the brain? Go back to what we talked about in the last session. You are reinforcing the identity of being an alcoholic. What we say to ourselves with repetition is what we train the brain to do, whether it's eating chocolate, working out, drinking alcohol, not drinking, whatever it is. I think my point is pretty clear right here, is that we all operate on autopilot. You're not getting what you want in life, you're getting your habits. Analytically, you say, "Oh, I want to be able to do and buy stuff like this." But tomorrow you're watching and playing video games all day long. Why? Because that's what you're in the habit of doing. And maybe video games are making you a lot of money, and you can buy a hell of a lot more than this. But for many people, they default into behaviors that are counterproductive, and they're soothing and they're pleasurable as opposed to what we need to be doing to create the life that we want. So you were born without habits. You learned them. You learned your habit. This will piss some people off, and I'm okay with that as well. You learned your habit of whatever your religion might be. You learned your nationalism, meaning if you are an American and you got marched out to say the Pledge of Allegiance, you learned nationalism for the most part. If you live in Russia, you did something different. Australia, something different. You learned that. Wealth, we learn to be wealthy. We learn to be poor. All of this becomes a habit because we do it over and over and over and over and over for years, especially while we're still living at home until about the age of 18. The Buddha said, first we create our habits, and then our habits create us. Repetition of behavior creates your habits. Every time you do something and then you do it again and again and again and again, your brain has to have what's called a synaptic response, a synaptic firing. Now, when your brain has these synaptic responses, what happens? It creates little pathways in the brain. Now, you can create one pathway, no big deal. But if you do the same thing over and over and over again, like getting up, getting out of bed, brushing your teeth, going to the toilet, turning on the shower, making coffee, notice you do the same thing over and over and over and over again. Your brain is actually ingrained the neural pathways. And neuroscientists say neurons that wire together fire together, because the more you do it, it's like just creating a rope. And the more you do something, you're creating a strand, a rope, and then it wraps around the other ropes like that and creates a stronger habit. This is why it's so hard for you guys to literally change your habits. How many of you have tried to change a habit and you have failed? If I ask you to hit the chat box, it would light up. The reason why, and I'll show you in a moment, you cannot use willpower to change a habit. Willpower is left brain analytical. The habit is, it's mammalian brain, midbrain, but predominantly primal reptilian brain. So the thought about a habit and the habit itself come from two different parts of the brain. And you've got to change the part of the brain that drives the thinking, which is the reptilian part of the brain, the oldest part of the brain. Everyone take a screenshot of this, or please pay attention. Everything is about conditioning yourself. Everything you do is because you are in the habit of doing it. Everything you don't do is because you are in the habit of not doing it. That is so simple, so profound that people neglect it, they miss it, they dismiss it. The bottom sentence, you are in the habit. You are in the habit of everything you do, be, and have. Ponder that. Everything you do, be, and have, you do it automatically, you be it automatically, and you have it automatically because you're in the habit of it. This is why rich people get richer to some degree in terms of behavior and thought. This is why poor people stay poor. They are in the habit of it. I really wish we were in a live audience, meaning where I could see you in a room in front of me, because I'd love to ask you to raise your hands. And if I said, how many of you recognize you do the same things over and over and over again? 80%, well, 90% of your hands would go up. 10% would say, well, I'm not sure, but we're the same. The brain, this is what it does. So, fundamental principle, everything is a habit. Now, we talk about good habits and bad habits. I don't bite my nails, but people could say, I bite my nails. That's a bad habit. No, it's not. Your brain, your prefrontal cortex might say that's a bad habit, but your brain, the reptilian part of the brain, doesn't know it as a good habit or a bad habit. It simply knows it as a habit. To the part of the brain responsible for habits, there are no good habits, there are no bad habits, there are simply habits. I mean, when you're learning something, when you're learning to tie your shoes, when you're what, 3, 4, 5 years old, you're not sitting there and your brain is not saying, whoa, whoa, whoa. You keep repeating that hand dexterity, finger dexterity, bad habit, bad habit, bad habit. It doesn't say good habit. Your brain simply learns. Your brain learns through repetition. Think about that. Every one of you have learned to have what you have in life or not have in life because of repetition, repetition of exposure, and mainly repetition of story, interpretation, creating the identity. And then we go into repetition, repetition, repetition. And then we analytically say, I don't want this anymore. But guess what? That's all been ingrained at a brain level. We have to actually create new conditioning for you. I'm going to show you in our time today how to actually stop a bad habit very, very quickly. I don't care what it is. It will work when you do 4 steps. And I will show you what they are a little later in our time today to break any bad habit. And I know because I use it to break a bad habit. And basically, I'm fortunate enough that I just figured it out and I'm the one who put this together. So, okay, I said earlier, willpower does not work. If it did, you'd already be free of the bad habit. What the willpower does is it reinforces the original thought, the original habit, and it makes it stronger. Mother Teresa, or was it Mother Teresa? Someone said, is Mother Teresa, what you fight makes you weaker. Proof? How many of you have said, maybe you're on a diet and you go to a wedding and they have this amazing looking cake, or for me, peanut butter cookies. And I'm just kidding. I mean, who has peanut butter cookies at a wedding? But you see those and you're like, nope, I'm not having any cake for 90 days. No cake, no cake. And you go to that wedding and you see that cake and you're like, and everybody around you chatting about how good it is. And you start thinking, well, no, can't do it. No, 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 no cake, no cake. Willpower. I got to fit in my clothes. Willpower. I got to do it. I can do it. I can beat it. Then what do? You're like, oh, let me just taste it. And then before you know it, you've eaten your whole piece of cake. See, willpower doesn't work because willpower is finite, analytical, prefrontal cortex, left brain thinking. The habit, as I said earlier, third time now, comes from the oldest part of the brain, the striatum, the basal ganglia, the reptilian part of the brain. It's the brain driving the habit, not the thinking, but you're trying to change the habit with your thinking as opposed to conditioning the brain like you learn the habit through conditioning. You've got to condition the brain to new habit. I'll give you guys a little exercise here in a moment you can start doing today. How many times have you tried to change a behavior only to fail? Losing weight, smoking, anger. Anger is a habit. Definitely a habit. Junk food, maybe even working out, saying you're going to work out and then you don't do it. You ever noticed, let's go to the flip side. You ever notice someone that's in the gym 3, 4 times a week and they do it religiously? Not any better, any worse than you. They're simply in the habit of doing it. Everything is habit. I'm going to say it again. Please listen. Everything is habit. And I'm going to say it again. Repetition is the mother of all learning. Everything is habit. And if you have something in your life, you're in the habit of having it. And if you don't have it, you are in the habit of not having it. So you have failed in life creating what you want because you've taken the wrong approach to change. I mean, how many of you have listened to the motivational speakers and all these people and the talking heads on social media? You've got to have willpower. You've got to want enough. You've got to want it more. You've got to do this. You've got to do that. And you get all fired up and it sounds good, but you can't sustain the behavior. Why can't you sustain the behavior? I'll show you in a moment. There's a part of your brain that wants you to fail. There's a part of your brain that wants you to fail when you're creating new habits. Think back yesterday, module 1, where I said disintegration anxiety. There is a part of your brain that will resist change. I'll show you today, and will talk you out of change. This is why I will offer you guys the opportunity to go into coaching with me and to dramatically transform your life. And even after all of this, 97% of you will still do nothing different. You'll think you've got enough and you can do it on your own. You can't, and I'll show you why. Information is content. It's not enough. You need application, and your brain is going to talk you out of application. This is why you have the intention to change in life and the good nature, and you want to do it, but you do the same shit over and over and over again. It's not you. Do not beat yourself up. It's your brain, but your brain will drag you parts of your brain will drag you right back down into the quicksand. This is why, look around you, look in the world. Most people never change. Okay. Habits are not about you. Habits are about habits. Make a note of that. Many of us make the habits about us, meaning, okay, I'm going to work out, I'm going to eat right, we could say. And then we start, and pretty quickly we fall off track. And then what do most people do? They personalize the behavior. And what do, guys? What do you do? See, I told you I couldn't do it. I just knew I had the fallacy. I had no willpower. I must be weak. I'm not strong enough. I'm just not the kind of person who can stick to a diet. I'm not the kind of person who can keep making money. It's not about you. If we were in Vegas, I would put up a big billboard sign. It's not about you. It's about your brain and your habits. Habits are about habits. Do not personalize your habits and make yourself bad because of habits not getting you what you want in life. I see it all the time, especially with women. They're going to go on a diet. They're going to lose weight. Now, they're not in the habit of it. They don't have the identity of it. They start the behaviors, but very quickly they fall back into their old rut again. Then they personalize what the brain did, taking them back into their old behavior, and they personalize it, saying, I can't do it. I'm weak. I must have no willpower. I'm not a very strong person. Now, what do you think they're doing in that moment? They're perpetuating the new interpretations and the new stories to keep them trapped in the old stories that they can't do it. You can do anything you want in life. You can create anything you want to create, plain and simple, when you're in the habit of doing it. And we also have to create the characteristics because you have to know what habits you need. But any of you ever said, I'm going to work out? And let's say I haven't worked out in 5 years. I'm making this up, but I want to work out. And then tomorrow rolls around. It's time to go to the gym. And then you hear workout. No, don't work out. You're too busy. Work out, don't work out. Work out, don't work out. Eat the cookies, don't eat the cookies. Drink the Coke, don't drink the Coke. Smoke the cigarette, don't drink the cigarette. Have the alcohol, don't have the alcohol. How many of you can relate to that? You have a habit battle going on in your brain. You have the prefrontal cortex, the analytical thinking part of you listening to me now, fighting with the reptilian part of the brain, the oldest part of the brain. What part of the brain normally wins? The oldest part of the brain. Why is it stronger? Because it is survival based. It has to keep you alive. I'm going to share something with you you probably have never heard before. Is that the reptilian part of the brain is responsible for keeping you safe and keeping you alive. This is why it doesn't like change, because any change, like we talked about in part number 1, is uncertainty. Uncertainty is scary for people and it's dangerous to the oldest part of the brain. So that oldest part of the brain, what it does is it says, okay, we're going to keep you safe. So to keep you safe, we're not going to allow any change in your life. And anytime you want to change, we're going to, the brain is going to talk you out of it. And I'll show you how the brain does that. So you have to recognize that it's simply not you. It is your habit voice. Everyone make a note of that word. You are not the habit voice. Okay. So you have a habit voice, but the habit voice is like that little demon on your shoulder. Do it, do it, do it, do it when you don't want to do it. And we have to learn to control the habit voice, because the habit voice is what drives the habit. When you control the habit voice, you control the habit. I will give you the exact wording to do this in just a moment. How many of you recognize this? Your habit voice is a con man. Your habit voice will lie to you. It'll scream at you. It'll trick you. It will yell at you. It will manipulate you. And it will rationalize. Why? To get you to do the old habit. Why? Because there's a part of the brain that believes the habit is necessary for your survival. Let's take the example of smoking a cigarette. Now, you analytically could say, smoking is not good for me. I shouldn't do it. I've got to quit this nasty behavior. Look at the amount of people in the world that can't quit the nasty behavior, even though they think they should. Why? Habit voice says, go ahead, go ahead. You know what? Just have one more cigarette, or just take a little puff, or don't worry about it. It's already Friday. Start on Monday. Don't worry about it. Enjoy the weekend. Start later. So that part of the brain, what it wants you to do is it wants you to continue the habit. Remember, no good habits, no bad habits. There are simply habits to the brain. The reptilian part of the brain works from the premise that all habits that you have are survival based. And because that part of the brain works from your habits are survival based, guess what? The brain doesn't want to eliminate the habit. Why? Because that would eliminate your survival. Hopefully that made sense to everyone, and you now understand why you go back into your old habits over and over and over and over again, even though you don't want to, even though you say you're not going to do it. Be careful. This habit voice, the con man, it will lie to you, it will cheat, it will rationalize, it will manipulate, it will do anything to get you to go back into the old habit. Now, notice this also. If you're not doing the habit and you're resisting the habit, I'll show you a way out of this. If you're resisting the habit, guess what? We start to get a little anxious. That's the brain turning up the anxiety to get you to do the habit. It's like the brain turning up the 5-alarm fire, wanting you to do the habit. And the more you resist the habit, the more the brain's going to push you, the reptilian part of the brain, push you to do the habit. We have to actually get out of that process and break that entire cycle. Again, I'll show you how to do it. So we've talked about, even though I didn't indicate that, behavioral habits, smoking, cookies, working out, etc. But what about habits of thought? Habits about staying committed. Go look in the group, in the Be2Have group. Look at the amount of people that said they haven't created what they wanted because they're not focused, or they're not committed, or they're not following through. Notice that. And then they blame themselves and they say something about themselves when it's not them, it is their brain. So what are your habits when it comes to commitment? Next session, I'll talk about mine. I learned the habit of not being committed. I learned from my dad, who was an alcoholic, who taught me it was okay not to finish anything. I learned the habit that it was okay to not commit to finishing a project. How far do you think that got me in business and life? Your thought habits become behaviors. So what are your thought habits about commitment, self-integrity, keeping your word to yourself, doing what you say when you say you're going to do it, the interpretations you're making in the world? Big one, your choices, your prioritization, the clarity you have in your life, your vision for what you want in your life. How about your discipline? How disciplined are you? Many people will say, I'm not disciplined at all. Yeah, you are. You are in the habit of being disciplined to the degree that you're being disciplined. It might not be a high degree of discipline, but you're in the habit of being to that degree of discipline. So this is why I said, you don't get what you want in life. You get your habits. You want more in life, and we're going to start doing it today. You've got to start creating the habits to create more in life. So everyone take a note of this, screenshot it, whatever. Your success in life is not about motivational speaking. It's not about Les Brown. It's not about Gary Vee. It's not about Tony Robbins. Your success in life is about conditioning yourself, conditioning your behavior, and conditioning your thinking to create the outcomes that you want. The outcomes that you currently have are because you have conditioned the outcomes. Please think about that. You have conditioned your outcomes. Conditioning is habit. Everything you have, if you have no money, I bet you've had no money for a long time because you're in the habit of having no money. If you have a lot of money, I bet you've had a lot of money for quite some time because you're in the habit of having money. Bottom line, you're in the habit of everything you be, do, and have. Let me walk you through this. I want to back up here. I drank Diet Coke for years. By the way, that shit is bad for you. So I drank Diet Coke for years, and I would say, okay, this is how I discovered this. Literally, I'd forgotten about that. This is how I discovered what I'm going to share with you, and it works. So many years ago, I would say, I would have one Diet Coke per day. And my rationalization was I would have it after lunch. My rationalization, remember I said con man will rationalize and manipulate? My rationalization was, well, I don't drink coffee So it's okay for me to get caffeine and I'll have one Diet Coke per day. Now, I wouldn't keep Diet Coke in the house because I would just go pick it up and drink it. Dumb behavior that I'm doing here. So every day I'd leave the house for lunch to get out of the house. And on the way home, I would stop at 7-Eleven and buy a Diet Coke, a 16-ounce black water Diet Coke. That's what a healer that I work with calls it, black water. And I would do this every single day, Monday through Friday, but not on the weekends, Monday through Friday. Now, I would say, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to pass by the 7-Eleven as I'm turning into the 7-Eleven. How many of you can relate to this? Not the Diet Coke, and it can be Diet Coke. I'm going to quit coffee. I'm going to quit honey. I'm going to quit smoking. I'm going to quit the sugar. I'm going to quit this. I'm going to quit that. But yet, before you know it, very next day, you're right back into the old behavior again. So the formula I'm going to show you, you're going to want to screenshot, take a picture of this formula. Let me walk you through it. So this is how you eliminate bad habit. Here's your dialogue. When the habit hits you, I want the Diet Coke. What you're going to get is you're going to get a craving. Step number 2, you're going to get the urge. Imagine, for example, that you say you're going to stop smoking or eating sugar or chocolate or whatever it is. Ain't going to do it. Then what happens? Thought pops in the mind. Then what happens? You notice as I'm walking you through this, you start getting an urge. You get a compulsion. Then what happens? The habit voice, the con man comes and says, go ahead. Just have one more today. Have one more Reese's Pieces. Have one more Reese's Buttercup. Have one more candy bar. Have one more. Don't worry about it. Start on Monday. I mean, hell, it's already Friday. Start on Monday. Notice how we have the thought, which comes from the brain, about remember, the brain, the reptilian part of the brain thinks all habits are survival mechanism. So the brain, believe it or not, has an alarm system back there that's going to remind you to do the habit. This is why no smoker ever says, oh, I forgot to smoke today. They don't forget. The brain reminds them. Then the alarm goes off. Then what happens? The compulsion comes in. Then what happens is the con man comes in, and before you know it, boom, you've collapsed right into the habit. Then you're sitting there smoking the cigarette going, shit, I said I was going to stop today, and here I am smoking a cigarette again. Then you personalize it. I can't stop. No matter what I do, I just can't stop smoking. Does everyone understand this cycle? This cycle happens to you day in and day out. And until you bust the cycle below, let's walk through it. Until you bust the cycle, nothing will change for you. Okay, here's how we bust the cycle. Here's how I did it with Diet Coke. And I had somebody criticize me on, I was running an ad about this a couple of years ago. And I mentioned the example of Diet Coke, and somebody said, oh, that's not a habit. Bullshit. Anything you do is a habit. And they said, you want to know habits? Well, heroin's a habit. Everything's a habit. And you want to know how you've been lied to in society? Back in the 1960s, the Pentagon was terrified that soldiers were going to come back because a large amount of soldiers in Vietnam, American boys in Vietnam, were addicted to heroin. And the Pentagon was terrified that boys were going to come back and we were going to have a heroin addiction in the United States. Do you know what happened? Never happened. Why? Because the boys came back, and research is now showing that habits are really more than anything environmentally driven. Think about that. So these boys came back. They shifted their environment, and they shifted their entire reality by shifting their environment, and the habit of heroin stopped right away. If you need medical attention, you're going to have the shakes or anything if you stop drinking. Don't do what I'm sharing with you. Get proper medical attention. But for anything you guys are dealing with, for the most part, mild over drinking, meaning 2 glasses of wine every day and you don't want to do it, smoking, and it's going to be a little more challenging based upon your belief about the habit. Many of you have the belief that stopping smoking is hard to do. If that's the belief you have, it's going to precede everything else that we're doing. But what I'm showing you will work. So let's say for me, Diet Coke. Now, when I was driving home, I had the urge to get a Diet Coke. This is what I said to myself. Wait, this is just a habit. It's not me. That's the truth. It's a habit from the oldest part of my brain. It's not me. It's not the totality of Jim. It's a habit. This is just a habit. It's not me. Write this down, guys. Take a picture. Next, identify. It's just habit voice. You can even say it's just my habit voice, con woman, con man, con person. It's just habit voice. It's not me. It's vital that you keep them pretty much intact with what I've given you here. Why? Because you're talking to yourself. Next, I dismiss habit voice and urge now. Notice what I said. I'm going to be very clear here. I didn't say I ignore habit voice. I said I dismiss habit voice. There's a difference between ignoring and dismissing. Ignoring, guess what? You got a 3-year-old kid. They're bugging you and they want chocolate candy, whatever it is. The more you ignore them, the louder they get. But I grew up a small town Texas farm boy, and my mother used to dismiss when I'd go into those places. In my household as a kid, here's how it worked. Can I have a candy bar? No. Can I have a candy bar? No. And I'm not going to tell you again, the answer is no. Notice what I didn't get there. I didn't get ignored. I got dismissed. When you dismiss the habit voice, and I'll show you metaphorically how to do it. When you dismiss the habit voice and urge now, they will go away. So how you do it, let's say that you're sitting over here and the habit voice is saying, have the cigarette, have the cigarette, have the cigarette. And you dismiss it, completely oblivious. No, done. And the topic, there it is. No, done, and the topic. No, period. That's dismissing. When you dismiss, what will happen? You'll train the brain, the reptilian part of the brain, the striatum. You will train that part of the brain to say, every single time I ask for something, I get told no, I'm not even going to ask anymore. How many of you, probably 70% of you statistically, have dogs? I saw somebody Donna picked up her cat. Well, she has a cat, and cats don't give a shit because they don't listen. I got a cat too. But how many of you have a dog? You ever notice when a dog wants something and you tell your dog no? They know that's the end of it. At least my dogs do. That's the end of it. They're not going to ask anymore, and they'll go plop down on their bed. Why? Because they've been dismissed. That is the power of dismissing. Use the formula, dismiss the habit. So metaphorically, turn your back on the habit and walk away. Now, you can even do it biologically, physiologically. You can actually, even when you're getting into this analytically, you can stand up, walk into the other room. Let's say that you're wanting a cigarette. Go through the process. No, stand up, go to the other room, do something it's called pattern interrupt. Do something to break the pattern. You will notice, I promise you, you will notice in a day, 2, 3, I'm not even wanting that anymore. I'm not even wanting those cookies anymore. I'm not even wanting that ice cream anymore. And to prove this to you guys, to show you how it works in some aspect of your life, how many of you have said, I'm getting married, or I've got to go to the beach, we're going to take pictures and all that, I got to get in the shape. And you literally use your willpower as an example, even though it doesn't work long term, and you get the result because you've dismissed it, the habit, the urge, and all the old behavior while you're actually working towards something. That is the power of dismissal. Now, step number 4, as I said, it's vital that you move your attention. Why? Because you're replacing your old attention with the urge and the wanting with your attention in a new place. And the way that I did it was simply self-talk. I moved my attention to, wow, how much stronger I'm becoming every day, how much more powerful I'm becoming every day. I wonder what else I can, what other bad habits I can break. You literally move your attention to something positive and opposite of the behavior. If it's smoking, you can move your attention to, I am so glad I'm a non-smoker. And that's the correct wording. I'm so glad I'm a non-smoker. That doesn't imply, many people will say, well, I don't smoke. You're actually, you're programming that into your subconscious mind. More on that later. But when we move our attention and then we do this 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, go back to the very beginning of our training. What are we doing? We're training the brain. You're training the brain with new habits. I guarantee you, I have taught this to hundreds of thousands of people. So only use it when you're serious about breaking a habit. If you're not serious about breaking the habit, don't do it. It won't work. I was serious about stopping Diet Coke. So if you're serious about stopping the cookies or whatever it might be, the soda, whatever, the sugar, whatever it might be, here is your process right here. If you haven't screenshotted this yet, screenshot it because we're going to move on. By the way, this training will be available through July the 12th. If you haven't watched it all by then, I know that we've lost 50% of the people that we had yesterday. That happens. I don't know why, but it does happen. But many people think, well, okay, I'll watch the recording. And many people do. But here's the thing. Make sure you finish the training. Because once it's done, I was talking to the team today. I don't know, maybe we will, maybe we won't. I don't know, but I don't know we'll ever do this free again. This is too damn valuable just to give away. We're probably going to start selling it. So up to you. All right, your principle. Dismiss the urge. Do not ignore. Dismiss habit voice. Move attention. You are where your attention is. Take a screenshot of that very quickly. There's your formula right there to break pretty much any bad habit. This is not for trauma. This is not if you're drinking an entire fifth of hard liquor every day. You definitely want to seek medical help for any of that. If you're severely drug addicted, you definitely want to seek medical help for that as well. This is not for that. This is for everyday thinking. And it can even be thinking about you get into a negative state, a negative mood, whatever. You can use it on that as well. Okay, so what have my habits created in the last 12 months of my life? I'm asking you guys, what's your income? What's your income right now? Your habits created that. What's your weight, your body size, your body mass, your body fat? Your habits have created that. Do you or do you not exercise? Your habits have created that. What does your diet look like? Your habits have created that. What's your relationship look like? Your habits have created that. What about your career? Are you still doing the same job today that you hated a year ago, but you bitch and you moan and you groan and you complain about it? We'll talk next session about all of that. But are you still doing it? Because you're in the habit. Bottom line, how long have these patterns persisted? For many of you, many, many, many years, because again, they are habits. They don't make you a good person. They don't make you a bad person. They're simply a reflection of your brain doing what it does to do. Just like an alarm clock. Alarm clock goes off. You don't hate on the alarm clock and go, alarm clock, you're the stupidest alarm clock ever. You're an idiot, lazy alarm clock. You don't do that. The alarm clock just does what it's programmed to do. Your brain does what it's programmed to do. You want more? Simple. Reconditioning, reprogramming. Okay. Ask yourself these questions. What do I want to create in the next 12 months? What habits will create the outcomes that I want? What habits would you need for monthly income? What habits would you need for the ideal weight and body? What habits would you need for exercise, for diet, and even in your relationships? Think about these guys. You have to habituate. And I can't teach you all this today. We do in the transformational coaching program, but I'm going to give you the first step, and everyone starts on the first step anyway. So I'm going to give you the first step in just a moment. We're not there yet. Ask yourself, what habits would I need to be, or does it say be? I can't read behind the thing there, to create a successful business life. I created this like 4 years ago. So what we're going to do, think about what's the number one habit that would make the biggest difference in your life, that when you actually mastered this habit and it became a habit, it's going to make an impact in your life. Now, what we want to do is we want to start small. Why? If you start big, you will fail. You want to ease the brain into change. We're going to start small. We're going to start simple. What you're going to learn today is the process of habit creation. Once you have mastered this, you can use it anywhere in your life. Okay? So let's start learning to create a new habit. Now, this is something that I do. I cannot not do this, is make your bed every single day. Now, there was a speech on YouTube, a video on YouTube about Admiral William H. McRaven talking to, I think, naval school graduates or something about this. One of my friends is a former Navy SEAL. I saw that video years ago. My friend, that's a former Navy SEAL, actually said, you got to learn to do this to be a Navy SEAL. I mean, everything's about conditioning, and you got to be the best in the world to be a Navy SEAL. And he goes, Jim, make your bed every day. It's about 5 years ago. No matter what, today, I cannot not make my bed. Even when the housekeeper comes, I make my bed, and my housekeeper's like, why are you making your bed when I'm coming to strip all the sheets off? I make my bed. When I go to a hotel, I make the bed. I cannot not make the bed. Why? It's a habit. Start very simple. This is something that anybody can do. And if you already make your bed, okay, then let's pick something else. Maybe you leave dirty dishes on the counter at night, your empty glass, put it away. Get in the habit of putting it away. Maybe you walk in the back door and you drop something on the floor and you keep saying, damn it, why do I keep doing that? Get in the habit. Every time you walk in the back door, no longer. I take it, I put it away. Pick something very, very small. It doesn't matter what it is. All that you're simply doing is you're training your brain how to create a new habit. And I ain't kidding. I am not kidding. I cannot not make my bed. If any of you guys want me to make your bed, invite me as a house guest. You'll get up, I'll leave. The bed will be made. The sheets will be taken off, but the bed will still be made when I left because I cannot not make a bed. My brain's conditioned to do it. All right. We've talked about your brain. We're on 1 hour point. We're probably going to go another 45 minutes or so. So now what we want to do, we've talked about your brain. Let's talk about your subconscious mind. Let's talk about your identity and changing your identity. I'm going to give you the steps in our time today. Okay. So remember yesterday, recall I said your self-identity controls every bit of your life. Now you know it's psychological from yesterday, it's identity-based, and it's also brain-based. But your identity controls every aspect of your life, and then your brain reinforces that. The reptilian part of the brain reinforces every bit of that. So we've talked about the brain, but we've also talked about your old context. And the only way to change your old context, we started today with this. That was your old context. 20 years ago, my old context would have been, shit, I want a gold bar, but I can't, or 30 years ago, and I said, I want a gold bar, but I can't have one because that wait table's making, what did I make? $500 a week at Chops Steakhouse in Atlanta, Georgia in the early 90s. And you showed me this back in the mid 90s, I'd have been like, there's no way. Oh my God, three gold coins. It's all conditioning. Okay. It's all conditioning. We have to reprogram new context. That's what we're going to do today, step by step by step. So your identity, your brain, your mind, are like we have software and hardware. Every one of you are on some kind of hardware right now. It's a computer, it's a phone, it's a smartphone, whatever it is. It's hardware. Your brain is the hardware. Your software is the programming. Now, you guys all know that if it's not in the programming, the hardware can't do it, right? We all know that. If it's not in the software, the hardware can't do it. So let's say, for example, many years ago when we had to buy different applications for the MacBook Pro or the Mac, let's say that you wanted to use iMovie on Mac. Apple made you buy iMovie maybe 10, 15 years ago. So let's say that you have a MacBook Pro, but 15 years ago, you didn't have the software. You couldn't, on your MacBook Pro, create a movie. Why? Because you didn't have the software to do it. You've got to have the software. We've already talked about the hardware today. Let's talk about the software. Because see, your life is a printout of your programming. Your life is a printout of your identity. What the identity is, look around you. That's your environment. Think about the triangle, top of the triangle, environment. Think of bottom of triangle. It was identity. The identity drives everything else in your life. So listen very carefully. It does not matter. I'll say it again. It does not matter. It does not matter what you have been programmed, indoctrinated, conditioned to believe. Why? Because your brain can change. This is neuroscience. It's called neuroplasticity. And I started digging into this when I had the stroke in 2020. Fortunately, I didn't have any long-term ramifications. I had to retrain my brain to become stronger again. But many years ago, a scientist would say, doctors would say, if you had a stroke, 90 days after the stroke, whatever your condition was, that will be the condition for the rest of your life. They no longer say that, at least those that are fully educated know this. Your brain can be retrained. You might not be able to heal that part of the brain that was damaged, but you can retrain the brain. Other parts of the brain will pick up those habits and behaviors. The concept, you can look it up online, called neuroplasticity, meaning the brain is plastic, meaning the brain can be molded, the brain can be changed. All of your old habits are your old plasticity in the brain. This is why we create the new habits. But we're going to create simultaneously habits with thoughts, which is what we're going to do now. So here's how to reprogram your subconscious mind. I'm going to walk you through the steps and I'm going to take them apart for you. Now, you may recall yesterday I said I am a master hypnotist. I have taught hypnosis now since 1993. I learned it in the 90s and I started teaching it maybe in 95. For 3 years, I worked at the Hypnosis Institute in New York City. I teach this to all of my students for months at a time in my transformational coaching program. We start subconscious reprogramming in week number 4, and we work with it all the way through the program to make sure you can master it and you habituate it. Basically, I'm pretty damn good at it. I use it myself every single day. Now, there are 4 fundamental steps to reprogram your mind and your brain. Your first step, number 1, and again, I'll take these apart for you. Your first step is emotional imagery. Your second step, repetition. There we go, that word conditioning again, but a different word. Third step, multisensory. Fourth step, accepted as already true. Think back to the homework. Who would I be? What would I have? And what would I do if I, operative word, already had blank? That word already is a very powerful word. Why? Because your subconscious mind responds to the word already. Your brain responds, the reptilian oldest part of the brain responds to the word already. I'll show you in a moment. Okay, so left brain, right brain. Your left brain, we are reversed, but your left brain, my left brain is your right. This is my left brain. It's responsible for analytics, the left hemisphere of the brain, analytics and executive thinking, math, science, analysis, short-term memory, numbers, all these kind of things, thought processes. The right side of the brain, the right hemisphere of your brain, is mammalian, so to speak, meaning the emotional, the limbic system part of the brain. Now, the entire brain works together. It's not like one part is responsible for one thing. It all works together like a system. But the right-hand side of the brain, it's the left-hand side of the brain that hears the music, but it's the right-hand side of the brain that processes the emotion related to the music. So we could hear, for example, Hauser, his song Benedictus. One of my favorite tunes, Hauser, the cellist, and the song Benedictus. Well, left brain, I know what it means, but right brain, I can feel the song. Two different sides of the brain processing the same experience. So we're going to learn to use both left and right side of your brain to reprogram your brain. I told you guys yesterday, and I told you before you even started, no one in the world does what I do in the way that I do it. And hopefully you guys are seeing it now. I mean, the people that didn't show up or the 1,000 that registered and didn't do anything, they're missing out. You guys are getting it. So I'm glad you're here. Okay, really important. That's why I have it in red. Remember, and I'll cover this at the end, your old habit neurology will try to talk you out of changing. The oldest part of your brain, as I said already, the reptilian part of the brain, doesn't like change. Why? Does anyone remember? Change to that part of the brain is threatening to your survival. So you must commit, meaning you must make this a habit, which is where many of you, I hate to tell you this, you will fail. Why? Because your brain will overrule everything you're trying to do to change, which is why we do the coaching program to train your brain to make sure we can stay on top of it with my leadership and my coaches. So what we're going to do today is we're going to start small. Okay, step number one, emotional imagery. Imagery is the language of your subconscious mind. To give you an example, a baby's smile. Research has demonstrated that a picture like this automatically makes people feel very good. I mean, who looks at this picture and goes, what a nasty looking baby? Or why do they have a baby here? I mean, what is even a baby? We don't do that. We're kind of like, oh, that's so cute. And all these things that we do, it engages the mammalian part of the brain. Pictures like this, images, 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 these impact the brain. I bet you, every one of you that have kids, you might have even thought, oh, that looks like my niece or my nephew or my baby or my own kids or whatever, because the brain automatically goes there. This is why emotional imagery is so important, vitally important. Have you noticed that your life is a reflection of what you keep imagining over and over and over and over again? You ever notice the more you imagine not being able to pay your bills, the more you can't pay your bills? You ever notice the more you imagine something bad happening, the more likely it is to happen? There's many reasons for that. Part of it's physics. We don't go into that here. We go into it in the transformational coaching program. But programming, okay? Step number one is emotional imagery. So what does that mean to you? Okay, what do you want to create? Think about that. What is it that I want to create? Better body. Let's go there. I want to create a very trim, very fit body. Do not talk to yourself about it. How would it feel And we're going to dig into this more. How would it feel if I had mobility and I could get up and I could run and I could jog and I could reach up on the top shelf and I had energy all day long? How would it feel? And what would I imagine? Many people say the word visualize it. Wrong. Not everyone can visualize. That is a visual predicate, meaning it's seeing a picture. Not everyone can visualize. This is neuroscience, but everyone can imagine. We just imagine differently. We imagine in words, pictures, feelings. You guys, to prove that, think back to when you were a kid and maybe you walked into grandma's kitchen and you always smelled those cookies in grandma's kitchen. And even as an adult, you can smell those cookies again. And every time you smell those cookies, you think of grandma's kitchen. That is the power of imagination. So, step number one, imagery. Einstein, your imagination is your preview of life's coming attractions. What you imagine over and over and over and over literally creates neural pathways in the brain. The neural pathways become your habits. Your habits become your behaviors. Your behaviors become your environment and your outcomes. How many of you, mainly women, but men too, you say you're going to create what you normally say is you're going to lose weight. But a more powerful way is that I release the excess weight and I move to my ideal weight. That's talking to your brain and the mind and the way they understand, a language and a coding they understand. But let's say that you get on the scale and you're like, damn it, I didn't lose any weight today. See, I can't lose any weight. Every time I get on that damn scale, I never lose any weight. 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 I'm always going to be fat. Remember what I talked about yesterday, master thought formula. Okay. So all we're doing is creating conditioning. We're creating a mold for the subconscious mind. You'll repeat the mold over and over and over and over and over again. Step number two, consistent repetition. Meaning what you say to yourself over and 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 over becomes the neural pathways in your brain. What you imagine over and over and over conditions the brain. And then we go back into that sequence I told you. The brain actually drives, then we create the images and the images and the behaviors and the behaviors and the outcomes, and then we don't like what we have. I want to point something out here. We learn to program the brain. Every one of you have learned to program your brain through repetition. So what we're talking about, you already do naturally. Think about that. What we're talking about, you already do naturally, but you program the shit from your self-image and your identity you learned when you were 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. So what you learned back then became your thoughts. We're broke. We're broke. Our whole family's overweight. Whatever it is. And then you actually get into the repetition over and over and over and over and over. You create these neural pathways in the brain. You create the habits. The habits create the identity. The identity reinforces the habits. And we are trapped for a lifetime. When I teach people this, many times people will say, Jim, it didn't work for me. And I'll say, how many times did you do it? And they'll say, well, I did it for 4 days and it didn't work. Are you kidding me? It took you a lifetime to learn your habits in terms of your neural pathways. A lot of research done on this, and everything I do, I pretty much research validate, is your brain needs about 10 trials to learn what you want it to do. Master thought formula, 10 times in a row. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You're teaching your brain. You're retraining your brain. What we're talking about is retraining your brain. It's not going to happen 3, 4, or 5 times. I just showed you the process of dismissing habit voice. It ain't going to happen 3 or 4 times. You've got to do it with repetition and stick to the repetition. You know, there's an old myth. How many days does it take to learn a new habit or change a habit? People say 10 days. People don't know shit. It's not 10 days. Research demonstrates that it takes about 67 days for you to do something consecutively every single day for it to become a non-conscious habit, meaning you just do it automatically and you don't even think about doing it. For most people, it takes a couple of months. Honestly, though, what it depends upon is your level of motivation. Your level of motivation will determine how quickly you create a new habit. If you're highly motivated because you're in pain, you're going to do something differently very quickly. Many years ago, my roommate Brad, back in the 1990s, a good friend of mine still, Brad would get drunk every day. And one day his girlfriend said to him, he was an alcoholic. And his girlfriend said to him, Brad, and they were engaged, Brad, if you ever drink again, I will split up with you. We're done. Very next day, Brad never drank again. Why? The motivation was so great for him to stop drinking. The pain of losing Kirsten was greater than the pain of giving up alcohol. We must condition. So you will habituate something based upon your motivation to change and to create what it is that you want to create in life. I see someone vaping right now. Many people think it's better than smoking. It's generally not any better than smoking, and in many cases, many times more dangerous than smoking. But we've been duped into believing it's not as bad as smoking. I'm not judging. Do what you want to do. Seriously, I promise. But this is the way to break any habit because people think, oh, smoking is a bad habit. It's a hard habit. Vaping is easier. No, it's not. I've had people come to me before on patches wanting me to hypnotize them to stop putting patches or chewing gum. Your brain doesn't know. It's just a habit. Remember, no good habits, no bad habits. So the repetition we're doing, it must be done consistently. So habits and neuroplasticity, we're going to finish up. There's two more steps. But as I said earlier, when you start the habit, you start shifting the neuroplasticity in the brain. You start reorganizing the way your brain works. And your brain, think back to the very beginning of the day, where I said the experiment at the Max Planck Institute, your brain, just like I talked to Derek, Derek's not here right now, but the yellow light, boom, your brain does it automatically. So when you condition your brain to what it is you want to create in life, your brain will do it automatically, but you've got to put in the effort to condition your brain. Okay, step number 3, multi-sensory is most powerful. Imagine it, sight, imagery, touch, hearing, taste, and smell. So let's use the example of going to the bathroom and you are in the middle of working out. You just started working out and you want to get in the habit of it. So what we have here in front of you is imagine you're getting in the shower. And let's say you start working out and let's go here. Let's say you've been working out for a month and you've done a damn good job at it. You're feeling better, your clothes are fitting better. You go to the bathroom to get in the shower, you take your clothes off, you look in the mirror, and you notice your body has changed. So notice how you're feeling better, you're talking to yourself better about it. You can even touch your body and notice that there's not as much fat on your waist or your thighs or whatever. Physically, touch, feel, hear what you would be saying to yourself. Good job, Bob. Great job, Susan. Great job, great job, great job. Notice what you're hearing. You can even go a step further. Imagine what other people would be saying to you in a very positive way. Have you lost weight? You look good. You look great. You look amazing. Excuse me. All we're doing is we're actually putting ourselves in the 3D, the 5 sensory experience. But see, your brain doesn't know that you're simply imagining. I'll cover that in a moment. You can even imagine if taste is applicable, you can imagine taste and you can imagine smell. Notice again what you're doing. You're imagining the new scenario and the way that your brain actually thinks. Auditorily, visually, kinesthetically, olfactory, and gustatory. the five physical senses. So when you use the five physical senses, you literally are you're tricking your brain to believe it's already true. The more you trick your brain to believe the operative word, it's already true, the more the brain will begin to respond to the imagery. This is nothing more than hypnosis, guys, self-hypnosis. So your full senses engage your subconscious mind. Remember, we said reprogramming your subconscious mind. So whatever you want to create in life, motivational speakers have talked about this for decades. Hear it, see it, feel it, imagine it, and imagine you are already that thing. As you've already learned today, you've got to do it with consistency and repetition. You've got to do it over and over and over. How quickly will this work for you? Everyone is different. It can be 3 days, it can be 5 days, it can be 2 weeks, it can be a month. In a month, you will start noticing, providing you really want to create this, you will start noticing changes in you. And then you can ask yourself, well, shit, do I want to invest a month to do this? Or do you want to invest the rest of your lifetime living the way you've been living? That's entirely up to you. Now, step number 4, imagine that it's already true. I forgot to bring it in here with me. I was going to bring a limit in here. And what I normally do when I speak live, meaning at live events, because I am alive, so I'm speaking live and you guys are alive, but at live events, I'll hold up a lemon and I'll squeeze it and I'll say, and generally sometimes there are large audiences, and I'll squeeze it and the cameras will zoom in and you can see lemon juice running down my hand. And then I'll say, who can taste this lemon, this juicy, ripe lemon? And then you'll see some people in the audience raise their hand and some people will start kind of salivating and the mouth will get a little tighter. You can even imagine right now taking that lemon and licking that lemon and imagining that tart tanginess on your tongue. Notice for some of you, a few of you, you could even feel it in your body, but you didn't do anything. Your subconscious mind thought about it. Your brain actually responded. There's a part of your brain that does not know the difference between real and imagined. And the more you imagine something over and over and over, repetition, you're literally fooling your brain. But what you do is you imagine that you already have it. The new home, the new car, the new behavior, the boyfriend, the girlfriend. For me, the biggest was in my life was health. In 2020, I even hired a hypnotist to work with me because I'm a hypnotist. I don't do it anymore, but I hired someone. And he actually worked with me for 3 months and created audios about being in perfect health. And I listened to those audios. Guys, I'm 59 years old. I'm in better health than most people 40 years younger than me. And I had a stroke and heart failure and freaking COVID 3 times. So I'm in better health and better shape than most people. But I constantly imagine being in good health. And I imagine, and I imagine, and I imagine, and I imagine being in perfect health and having endurance. I live in Sedona, being able to hike wherever I want to hike, the energy, the endurance, the quality of life. I imagine 5 senses, hearing, seeing, feeling, smelling, tasting, touching. I imagine over and over and over and over. What am I doing? I'm training my brain. Think about that. I'm going to show you some more here, guys. But steps number 1 through 4, let's keep them simplified. I said this in part number 1. Think back to part number 1 now. Imagine. See things as you want them to be, not as they are. Can't pay your mortgage? What do you focus on? I can't pay my mortgage. I can't pay my mortgage. I can't pay my mortgage. I can't pay my... You just reinforce that. Or I'm working out hard every day. I'm working out hard every day. I'm working out hard every day. You're simply reinforcing whatever it is that you're talking about because your brain and your mind don't know the difference between good and bad. Your brain simply knows what you're programming it to do. plain and simple. Okay. Affirmations. You hear a lot of people saying, okay, you got to say all the affirmations. That's partly true, but let me show you why an affirmation by itself does not work. Stay with me, guys. This is actually will help a lot of you guys. There's a reason that affirmations do not work, and many of you get bored and you don't do them after a while. Okay. I don't know if we have any vegetarians here, so shoot me. I like red meat. I love a really good, juicy, prime ribeye. I love ribeye steak. Okay. Now, think about something you like, maybe in a nice restaurant. Here's the menu right here in front of you. Okay. So you see filet mignon, center cut. You see a bone-in ribeye. You see New York strip steak, cold water lobster, ribeye steak, grilled chimichurri prawns. Okay. Now, this is all left brain analytical. Affirmations are generally left brain analytical, but the change comes from the right-hand side of the brain, which is the seat of the subconscious mind, so to speak, for our purposes. Let me show you the difference between the power of left brain and right brain. Okay. This is why your right brain always wins. This is why even when you imagine bad shit over and over and over and over again, you keep doing it even though you don't want to. Here we go. Let's go have a steak dinner. Left brain, right brain. Do you want, if you're a steak eater, do you want left brain or do you want right brain, the steak dinner? Which one engages you more? Does this engage you or does that engage you? If you're ordering, can you get a sense of the meal from this or from that? This is the power of imagery. This is the power of imagination. This does not speak to your brain. This speaks to your brain. Even if you don't like it, it still speaks to your brain. This is why this is so fundamentally powerful. This is why you've got to do it. I've taught this for decades. I know what I'm doing. I have worked with movie stars. I've worked with billionaires. I've worked with famous people. I've worked with actually people who help world leaders. I've worked at the highest level. I've worked with royalty. This is how it works for every single human being on the planet. Now, notice I have it in red. It does not matter if you believe your new imagery, because many of you will say, but I want $1 million or I want the better health or the better body, but I don't believe I can have it. And so then what we do is we collapse and we stop. It does not matter that you do not believe it. What matters is that you do it exactly as I have instructed over and over and over and over again until you start noticing the changes. Why? I've already given you the answer, and that there's a part of the brain that does not know the difference between real and imagined. And the more you imagine, even if you don't believe it, the more you imagine it as true, the more true it will become for you. Proof? You've done the same thing, so don't judge. But you do the same thing to yourself as well. You ever seen somebody tell a lie and you know it's a lie and you're like, there they go again. But if you notice sometimes when they do that, they believe the lie they're telling. Why? Because they've told it over and over and over again. And no one ever says, hey, you know what? I'm about to tell a lie right now. I don't believe it, but I'm about to tell a lie. We don't do that. We tell the lie and then we repeat it over and over and over again till it becomes habituated. Now, can you see how this has trapped you in your lifetime, the way the brain functions? What lies do you tell yourself? I can't do. I can't be. I can't have. I can't go. Then you put that on autopilot and you tell it over and over and over and over again. And what are you doing? You're conditioning your brain. All that really matters, bottom of the screen, is clarity, repetitious imagery, multisensory, consistency. Now, if you don't believe me, you look at your life right now, because that's how you became who you are today, with the imagery, thinking about it, interpreting it, playing it in your mind, playing it in your mind, playing it in your mind, and then playing it in your mind over and over, year 1, 2, 3, 4, decade 1, 2, 3, 4, over and over and over. Every one of you have become conditioned to be exactly who and what you are. Want more money? Want better health? Want a lot of money? It doesn't matter what you condition it with. It doesn't matter if you condition it with making an extra $10,000 this year. It doesn't matter if you condition it with making an extra 100,000. It doesn't matter, because a part of the brain doesn't know that it's not real. The universe doesn't know numbers like that. So what you condition over and over and over, that's the foundation, is what you become every single time. Here's something else, guys, really important. You cannot force change. You cannot force your subconscious mind to change. Notice, when you tied your shoes when you were 3, 4 years old, you never said, all right, okay, hands, you better get it right. You're going to tie these shoes right this time. You simply do it over, 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 over till you get it. If you try to force change, there's a part of your brain that will rebel and you won't get the change. Notice anything and everything you think. You didn't force yourself to think that thing. You learned it through being exposed to it, through the repetition to it. And you learn to think that way, and you gently just think it over and over and over and over. That is the way to reprogram the brain and the mind, not forcing it. Not like, damn it, you better create that house for me. Damn it, you better. That's not the way to do it. The brain will rebel, and you're not going to get any results on that. A couple of books here. My book, The Subconscious Solution, should be out next couple of weeks, I hope. We've been working on this now for quite some time. This will be out soon. It's not going to be on Kindle yet. We're going to start promoting it to the tribe and different things, but it'll be on Kindle soon. My book will be out soon. And I cover a lot of things we've covered and beyond that in the book. Another book that I recommend is The Power of Your Subconscious Mind by Joseph Murphy. I may write my own book like this, and even better. I tend to take other people's content and improve on it. That's kind of what drives me in my thinking, is how can I take some content, make it easier to assimilate, understand, and believe it. The thing about this book here is there are a lot of steps and sequences that will be explained even deeper than what we've done here. We only have so much time here. So I recommend that book as well. Okay, how do I program myself? Here's where we start. Who would I be? What would I do? And what would I have if I are, or how would I, whatever, if I already made, did, or was blank? How would I be? What would I do? And how would I feel if I already made 100,000 a year? Or what would I do? How would I feel? And basically, who would I be if I already was trim, fit, and healthy? So think about that. And then ways to be, which we'll talk about in the next session. Very powerful ways to be, as examples, are responsible. See, many of you think you're responsible. You're not. Most of you are completely irresponsible, no matter how responsible you think you are. The definition of responsibility is causing something to happen. If you've not created what you want in life, plain and simple, you've been irresponsible for creating it. Responsibility is a way to be. Committed is a way to be. Self-integral is a way to be. Many of you are not those ways because you've gotten in the habit of being a different way. How about this? What would you do? I would be on time. On time is a doing. Early. I'd be to work early. I'd go the extra mile. I would manage my time. I'd manage my energy. Ways to feel: accomplished, valuable, energized, successful. And then write out some corresponding emotional imagery. You can even take pictures and put pictures up, which is why people have vision boards. And then the identity is, who is this person? See, my identity I'm wealthy, grew up poor. It's not about being wealthy. I created being wealthy by the identity of being somebody who helps as many people on the planet as I can. Notice, by the way, guys, this weekend I'm going to be doing lives, they're not announced, on money. If you have any challenges with money, you're going to want to catch those lives. I don't know if I'm going to do one or two this weekend, but I will be talking about money because most of you have broken strategies, broken thought processes for money. The way you make money is not to go out and earn it. You're working backwards, but that's what the world teaches us to do. So I know at least on Saturday, I'm going to do a live and I'll get started. And if I don't do one on Sunday, I will do another live on Tuesday about money. And I want to talk about how you want to psychologically approach money to create the amount of money that you want to create in life. Okay. And then at the bottom, identity, who is this person? Meaning, who is this person that has a lot of money? Or who is this person that has an impact in the world? Or who is this person that is trim, fit, and healthy? And then ask yourself, does my being and doing and having align with the desired outcome that I want? Okay, you're reprogramming both your, we're almost wrapping up here, guys. You're reprogramming both your mind and your brain, both, two birds, one stone, with what I have shared with you today. Honestly, if I were you, I would watch this again and again and again. And if you're the kind of person that wants to help more people, your friends, your family, your coworkers, tell them about this training. It's free. And if you found benefit, guess what? Other people will find benefit. Let's help other people live a better quality of life. Let's expand this learning because this is pretty simple stuff. I think I've taught it for years, so it's simple for me, but most of us do not know it. Okay. So let's help more people know it. Okay. In a nutshell, a couple of more slides here and we're done for the day. Oh, close your eyes and relax. Take a couple, not right now, especially if you're driving. But then what you want to do is just take a couple of deep breaths in and out, 3, 4 breaths. Out, in and out, just breathe, okay? Then you want to imagine what you're wanting to create as already true. Do not force it. Do this over and over and over again. And ideally, it's best if you can do it the same time every day. And ideally, it's best if you can take 2 minutes to do this 3 times a day. In the morning, first thing when you wake up before you get out of bed, at lunchtime when you sit down to eat lunch or sometime in the afternoon, and at night, the last thing before you turn out the light. Why do you guys think I suggest 3 very similar times during the day? You're training your brain. You're getting in the habit of conditioning yourself. Because even though you condition yourself automatically, you're not in the habit of what I call conscious conditioning, and do it over and over and over and over again. Warning, it's really important, guys, is that remember your habit voice and your old identity will try to sabotage you. So you could sit here and say, yeah, gung ho, I'm going to do this. And then you find yourself not doing it. It's not you. You're not a bad person. You're not lazy. You're not any of these things. It's simply your brain sabotaging you. So remember, which this is why we do the coaching program, to keep you immersed in the work for months at a time, because you automatically learn the new habits and behaviors by being immersed with me and my coaches in a community for 3 months. We immerse people. Why? Because you cannot not become when you're immersed in the process of change. Most programs you go to, it's 1 day, 2 days, you're there for 4 or 5 days, then you go back out on the world again and you're all fired up and then you go right back out on your old shit again. This is why we do it and the way that we do it, and no one in the world does it like we do. For right now, your only takeaway on this slide, remember, if you find yourself already falling off track tomorrow, you find yourself not doing this tomorrow, we're going into the weekend, notice that is your brain already sabotaging you. Okay. Our next training session, next Monday, 1 p.m., July the 1st. We're going to talk about your ways of being, characteristics and ways to be, and how must we be. And then you'll be able to take that and today and yesterday, start tying them together and start building and start creating a new life for yourself. We will be telling you about a little bit about the transformational coaching program, the program where I work with you. We'll be telling you about that on Monday as well. And we'll be sending you a video on that with all the details. Okay. Make it a great day today. Make it a great weekend. If you have any money challenges, I'm going to do a money live in the group tomorrow. I will pin it to the top of the group, and I'm going to talk about how to actually start approaching money psychologically. It's not rah-rah. Just like everything we've done, notice how I've shifted a lot of your thinking, or at least the way you look at things. We need to shift the way you look at money. You don't know how to look at money if you're not making money, because if you know how to look at money, you would already be making money. You don't know how to do it. I had to learn how to shift. And trust me, seminars, the Wall Street Journal, online didn't teach me. I had to take a lot of ancient wisdom and a lot of brain science and start shifting. And I'm going to start teaching you guys that tomorrow on a live. I'll pin it in the room. Thank you for being here. Be in the room, and I will catch you guys in the room.